Vikram had been staring at his old SUV for what felt like the 100th time that month. It sat there in the parking lot of his apartment building in Bengaluru, looking tired and worn out. The paint had lost its shine years ago, and there were small dents and scratches that told stories of 5 long years on Indian roads. He'd bought it when things were different, when he was just starting to climb the corporate ladder, when impressing clients wasn't part of his job description. But life had moved on, and so had his responsibilities. His promotion to regional head had come through 3 months ago, and with it came a reality he hadn't fully anticipated. Now he was traveling across Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and parts of Andhra Pradesh, meeting clients who drove luxury German sedans and Japanese SUVs. His current vehicle, though reliable, was starting to feel like it belonged to a different chapter of his life. Every time he pulled up to a 5-star hotel for a business meeting, he felt a small twinge of awkwardness. His wife Mira had noticed his restlessness. She always did. Over breakfast one Saturday morning, as their kids argued over the remote control in the living room, she brought it up. "You've been looking at car websites every night for 2 weeks now," she said, pouring him more coffee. "Just tell me what you're thinking." Vikram smiled. After 12 years of marriage, hiding things from Mira was impossible. "I think we need an upgrade," he admitted. "Something bigger, safer, more comfortable for long drives. The kids are growing up. Your parents visit more often now, and with my new role, I need something that fits the position." Mira nodded slowly. She was practical about money, always had been. They'd worked hard to get where they were, and she wasn't one to spend carelessly. But she also understood ambition and the subtle ways the world judged success. "What are you looking at?" she asked. "That's the thing," Vikram said, leaning back in his chair. "I thought I'd go for the usual suspects, the brands everyone talks about. But the prices are crazy, and honestly, I'm not sure they're worth it anymore." He pulled out his phone and showed her the research he'd compiled. Spreadsheets with specifications, price comparisons, feature lists that went on for pages. Mira laughed at his thoroughness. He'd always been like this, turning every decision into a detailed analysis. The turning point had come 3 days earlier, on a Tuesday morning. Vikram had been walking toward his office building when he heard someone call his name. It was Ranjit, his colleague from the Chennai office who was in Bengaluru for a few days. But it wasn't Ranjit that caught his attention. It was the vehicle he'd just stepped out of. The SUV was stunning, bold, muscular, with a presence that made people turn their heads. It was finished in a deep, rich white that seemed to glow in the morning sun. The chrome grille was distinctive, the LED headlights sharp and modern. Everything about it screamed premium quality. "New ride?" Vikram had asked, walking over to get a closer look. Ranjit's face lit up with the enthusiasm of someone who just made the best decision of his life. "The 2025 XUV700. Got it delivered last month. Man, this thing is a beast." Vikram walked around it slowly, taking in the details. The design was aggressive yet sophisticated. The alloy wheels were massive, the body lines crisp and purposeful. Through the windows, he could see a dual-screen setup that looked like it belonged in vehicles costing twice as much. "Mahindra?" Vikram said, surprised. He'd always associated the brand with rugged utility vehicles, not something this refined. "I know what you're thinking," Ranjit said, unlocking the doors. "I thought the same thing. But get in, check it out. The interior was a revelation. Soft leather seats, a panoramic sunroof that flooded the cabin with light. Ambient lighting that created a lounge-like atmosphere. The build quality felt solid, the materials premium." Ranjit showed him the features with obvious pride. The advanced driver assistance systems, the 360-degree camera, the connected car technology that let him control functions through his phone. "How's it to drive?" Vikram asked, genuinely curious now. "Smooth, powerful, refined. The diesel engine has serious punch when you need it, but it's quiet and comfortable for daily use. I drove to Coimbatore last weekend, and it handled the highway like a dream. The adaptive cruise control is a game-changer in traffic." They'd talked for another 15 minutes before Ranjit had to rush to his meeting. But the seed was planted. That evening, Vikram had gone down the rabbit hole of research. Reviews, comparison videos, owner testimonials, technical specifications. The more he learned about the 2025 XUV700, the more intrigued he became. Mahindra had clearly done something special with this update. The flagship model had always been good, but the 2025 version seemed to address every criticism from previous years. Enhanced safety features that rivaled European brands, better refinement in the engine and transmission, improved materials throughout the cabin, advanced technology that actually worked rather than just looking good in brochures. But what really caught his attention were the real-world stories. Families taking it on road trips from Mumbai to Ladakh, business owners using it for both personal comfort and professional credibility, enthusiasts praising its handling and performance. These weren't paid reviews or promotional content. These were genuine people sharing their experiences. Now sitting at his breakfast table with Mira, Vikram realized he'd already made up his mind. He just needed to convince himself it was the right call. "So, which one are you leaning toward?" Mira asked again. "The XUV700, he said. "The 2025 model." "I think it checks all our boxes." Mira raised an eyebrow. "I thought you were looking at the German brands." "You've been talking about them for years." "I was. But when you actually compare what you get for the money, it doesn't make sense. The XUV700 has features that are optional extras on vehicles costing 15 lakhs more. Plus, it's designed for Indian conditions, Indian roads, Indian weather. That matters." His 10-year-old son Arav wandered into the kitchen looking for snacks. "Are we getting a new car?" he asked, perking up. "Maybe," Vikram said. "Want to come check it out with me this weekend?" "Can we go now?" Arav asked, immediately excited. Mira laughed. "Finish your homework first, and let your father finish his coffee." But the enthusiasm was contagious. Even 7-year-old Dia, who normally didn't care about cars, wanted to know if the new one would have a sunroof like her friend's parents' car. Vikram assured her it would. That night, lying in bed, Vikram found himself imagining the possibilities. Long drives to their hometown in Punjab without the usual discomfort. Taking Mira's parents on that trip to Korg they'd been postponing. Pulling up to client meetings with confidence. Weekend getaways that didn't feel like endurance tests. The old SUV had served them well, but it belonged to who they used to be. The XUV700 represented who they were becoming. It wasn't just about showing off or keeping up with anyone. It was about comfort, safety, and yes, a little bit of pride in how far they'd come. Tomorrow he'd call the dealership and set up a visit. No commitments yet, just a look, but deep down, Vikram knew that once Mira sat in those leather seats and saw that panoramic sunroof, the decision would be made. Sometimes you just know when something is right. He smiled in the darkness and finally fell asleep, dreaming of open highways and new beginnings. Saturday morning came with the kind of excitement that usually only kids feel before a trip to an amusement park. Vikram had called the Mahindra dealership on Thursday and scheduled a visit for 10 in the morning. He'd told himself it was just an exploratory visit. No pressure, no commitments. But the way he'd polished his shoes and worn his good watch suggested otherwise. Mira came out of the bedroom, checking her earrings in the mirror by the door. "You're acting like we're going for a job interview," she teased. "I just want to look presentable," Vikram said defensively. "To buy a car?" "To explore options," he corrected, though they both knew he was fooling nobody. Getting the kids ready was the usual chaos. Arav wanted to bring his cricket bat, convinced they'd have time to play somewhere. Dia insisted on wearing her princess dress because apparently visiting a car showroom qualified as a special occasion in her 7-year-old mind. After the standard morning negotiations and minor crisis management, they finally piled into the old SUV and headed toward the dealership. The Mahindra showroom was located on the main highway, a modern glass and steel structure that caught the morning sunlight beautifully. As they pulled into the parking lot, Vikram spotted several XUV700s on display outside, each in a different color. His heart rate picked up slightly, though he'd never admit it. "Wow," Arav said from the back seat, pressing his face against the window. "They're huge," they were. Even parked next to other SUVs, the XUV700 had a commanding presence. The bold front grille, the sharp LED headlights, the muscular wheel arches, everything about it looked purposeful and strong. A young woman in professional attire approached them as they got out of their car. Her name tag read Ms. Reddy, and her smile was warm and genuine, not the pushy saleswoman type that Vikram had been dreading. "Good morning, Mr. Vikram." We spoke on the phone. "Welcome to Mahindra." Handshakes were exchanged and she led them into the showroom. The interior was impressive, spacious, all lit with several vehicles on display, but the star of the show was impossible to miss. Right in the center, elevated on a platform with spotlights highlighting its curves, stood a 2025 XUV700 in Everest white. Dia gasped. "It's so pretty." Even Mira, who'd been maintaining her practical stance all morning, couldn't help but admire it. The white exterior gleamed under the showroom lights, the chrome accents adding just the right amount of flash without looking excessive. Ms. Reddy gave them a moment to take it in before starting her presentation. She was good at her job, knowledgeable without being overwhelming, patient with the kids' questions, and honest about both strengths and limitations. "This is our AX7L variant," she explained, walking around the vehicle. "The 2025 model comes with several upgrades over the previous version. Would you like me to walk you through the features, or would you prefer to explore it yourselves first?" "Walk us through it," Vikram said, his analytical mind already cataloging details. They started with the exterior. Ms. Reddy pointed out the redesigned front grille, the new LED lighting signature, the updated alloy wheel design. Arav was fascinated by the roof rails, already imagining camping trips and adventure sports. Vikram ran his hand along the body, noting the paint quality and panel gaps. "Both excellent. Can we see inside?" Mira asked, and Vikram caught the hint of excitement in her voice that she was trying to hide. Ms. Reddy opened the driver's door, and they were greeted by an interior that looked and felt premium. The leather seats were a rich brown color, contrasting beautifully with the black dashboard. The dual-screen setup dominated the front, a large touchscreen infotainment system and a digital driver's display that looked sharp and modern. Mira slid into the driver's seat, and Vikram watched her face light up. The seat position was perfect for her, and she could see clearly in all directions. She adjusted the steering wheel, tested the seat adjustment controls, and nodded approvingly. "Ventilated seats?" she asked, noticing the controls. "Yes, front and second row. Essential for Bengaluru summers," Ms. Reddy confirmed. Vikram climbed into the passenger seat while the kids scrambled into the second row. The space was generous. Arav stretched out his legs and declared he could sleep back there. Dia discovered the panoramic sunroof and immediately started planning how she'd watch the stars during night drives. Ms. Reddy demonstrated the features one by one. The touchscreen was responsive and intuitive, with wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. The sound system was surprisingly good, a premium setup that filled the cabin with clear, rich audio. There was wireless charging for phones, multiple USB ports, ambient lighting that could change colors, and an air purifier that Mira immediately appreciated. "What about safety features?" Vikram asked. This was important to him, especially with two kids who'd be spending a lot of time in this vehicle. Ms. Reddy's eyes lit up. This was clearly where the XUV700 shined. The 2025 model has enhanced ADAS, advanced driver assistance systems. That includes adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, forward collision warning, automatic emergency braking, blind spot monitoring, and a 360-degree camera system. She pulled out a tablet and showed them videos of these features in action. Vikram was impressed. These were technologies he'd only seen in luxury European brands, and here they were, standard in the XUV700. There's also 6 airbags as standard, electronic stability control, hill hold control, and the body structure has received a 5-star safety rating in tests, she continued. Mira looked at Vikram, and he could see she was taking this seriously now. Safety wasn't a luxury feature for them, it was essential. "What about the engine options?" Vikram asked. "We have both petrol and diesel. The diesel is a 2.2-liter turbocharged unit producing 185 horsepower and 450 Nm of torque. The petrol is a 2.0-liter turbo with 200 horsepower. Both come with either a 6-speed manual or a 6-speed automatic transmission." Numbers were Vikram's language, and these numbers spoke well. He'd done his research and knew these engines had a good reputation for reliability and performance. "Can we take it for a test drive?" he asked. "Absolutely. Let me arrange that for you." 20 minutes later, they were on the road. Ms. Reddy sat in the passenger seat with Vikram driving, while Mira and the kids were in the second row experiencing it as passengers. They'd taken the diesel automatic variant, which was what Vikram was leaning toward. The first thing he noticed was how quiet it was. The engine noise was barely noticeable, even when accelerating. The ride quality was smooth, absorbing Bengaluru's notorious potholes without transmitting harsh jolts to the cabin. The steering felt precise, the brakes were confidence-inspiring, and the overall driving experience was refined. They drove through city traffic, where the automatic transmission proved its worth. Then Ms. Reddy guided them toward the highway for a few kilometers. Here Vikram opened up the throttle a bit, and the XUV700 responded with strong linear power. The engine had plenty of torque available at low revs, making overtaking easy and safe. On the highway, he engaged the adaptive cruise control. The system worked beautifully, maintaining a set distance from the car ahead, speeding up and slowing down automatically. It was like having a co-pilot handling the tedious parts of highway driving. "What do you think?" Ms. Reddy asked. "It's impressive," Vikram admitted. "Really impressive." From the back seat, Mira called out, "The ride is very comfortable back here. No motion sickness at all." Arav was playing with the connected car features on the touchscreen, and Dia had her face pressed against the window, watching the world go by through the massive glass area. They returned to the showroom after a 40-minute drive, and Vikram's mind was racing with thoughts. This wasn't just a good SUV, it was an excellent one. The build quality, the features, the driving experience, the safety equipment, everything pointed to a vehicle that had been designed and built with serious attention to detail. Back inside, Ms. Reddy brought them water and gave them space to discuss among themselves while she handled another customer. "So," Vikram asked Mira. "I like it," she said simply. "I actually really like it. The safety features are excellent, it's comfortable for long drives, and honestly, it feels premium. Not like we're compromising anything." "Dad, can we get it in blue?" Arav asked. "I want white like the one inside," Dia countered. Vikram laughed. At least everyone was on board with the choice itself. Ms. Reddy returned with a detailed brochure and a price quote. Vikram studied the numbers carefully. The AX7L diesel automatic with all the features they wanted came to a significant amount, but it was still considerably less than the European competitors he'd been considering, and honestly, those didn't offer anything substantially better than what he'd just experienced. "Can I take this home to review?" he asked, holding up the quote. "Of course. And if you have any questions, you have my number. There's no pressure here, Mr. Vikram. This is a big decision and you should take your time." They thanked her and headed back to their car. As Vikram drove home, his old SUV felt even more tired and dated than before. The seats weren't as comfortable, the ride wasn't as smooth, and the features he'd once been proud of now seemed basic. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Vikram and Mira sat with the quote and a calculator, working through the finances. They could afford it. The question was whether they should. "What's holding you back?" Mira asked, sensing his hesitation. "Nothing rational," he admitted. "It's just a big step. Once we do this, there's no going back. Vikram, we've worked hard to get here. You've earned this promotion. We've been careful with money, and this isn't a frivolous purchase. It's an investment in our comfort and safety. Stop overthinking it." She was right, as usual. Sometimes the practical decision and the emotional decision aligned perfectly, and this was one of those times. "Okay," he said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do it." Mira smiled and squeezed his hand. "So which color?" They both laughed. That was going to be another family debate entirely. The next 2 weeks were a blur of decisions, paperwork, and anticipation. Vikram had called Ms. Reddy on Monday morning, and by Tuesday afternoon he'd transferred the booking amount. The moment the payment confirmation came through on his phone, something shifted. This was really happening, but booking the car was just the beginning. Now came the hard part, choosing the exact specifications. It turned out that even after deciding on the XUV700, there were a dozen more decisions to make. Color was the first battleground. The family sat around the dining table one evening with the brochure spread out, each person advocating for their choice like lawyers presenting a case. "Dazzling silver," Vikram argued. "It's sophisticated, professional, and it'll hide dust better than darker colors." "Boring," Arav declared. "We should get midnight black. It looks powerful, like a stealth vehicle." "Black shows every speck of dirt," Mira pointed out. "And it'll be like an oven in summer, even with all that air conditioning." "Pearl white," Dia insisted, holding up the brochure picture. "Like the one at the showroom. It's pretty." "It's not about pretty, it's about practical," Arav shot back, and soon they were bickering like only siblings could. Vikram rubbed his temples. He'd handled complex project negotiations with multinational clients, but getting his family to agree on a car color was proving more challenging. Mira, ever the diplomat, suggested they each rank their top 3 choices and find the common ground. After much debate, they settled on dazzling silver. It wasn't anyone's first choice, but everyone could live with it. Sometimes compromise was the only path to peace. Then came the accessories discussion. Ms. Reddy had sent over a list of available add-ons: parking sensors, a dash cam, floor mats, seat covers, a rear entertainment system, chrome garnishes, and various other options. Vikram found himself in the familiar territory of spreadsheets, calculating cost versus utility for each item. "Do we really need a dash cam?" Mira asked, looking over his shoulder. "Absolutely," Vikram said firmly. "Insurance claims, disputes, crazy drivers, it's worth every rupee. I've seen too many cases where footage saved people from false claims. The floor mats and all-weather protection were non-negotiable. Seat covers sparked another debate. Mira wanted them to protect the leather. Vikram thought they'd diminish the premium feel. They compromised by ordering them but deciding to use them only when needed. The rear entertainment system was tempting, especially with two kids who got bored on long drives. But at that price point, Vikram decided their tablets would suffice. Besides, the connected system already had plenty of entertainment options. Insurance was another rabbit hole entirely. Third-party versus comprehensive, different deductibles, add-on covers for engine protection, zero depreciation, return to invoice. The options seemed endless. Vikram spent an entire evening comparing policies from 5 different companies, reading fine print until his eyes hurt. "Just pick the comprehensive one with good claim settlement ratio," Mira finally said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "You're overthinking this." She was probably right, but Vikram couldn't help himself. This was a significant investment, and he wanted everything protected. The hardest part, though, was the waiting. Ms. Reddy had mentioned a 6 to 8 week delivery timeline depending on the chosen variant and color. Vikram had nodded calmly in the showroom, but now, living through it, every day felt longer than the last. He joined 3 different XUV700 owner groups online. Every evening after work, he'd scroll through posts, looking at photos of deliveries, reading reviews, watching videos of modifications and accessories. Other owners shared their experiences, the joy of delivery day, tips for the first service, advice on maintenance, complaints about minor issues, praise for customer service responses. Arav caught him watching an XUV700 review video for the 3rd time one Saturday morning. "Dad, you're obsessed," he said, not unkindly. "I'm just being thorough," Vikram defended himself. "You've already bought it. What are you being thorough about now?" The kid had a point, but Vikram couldn't stop. He'd read every article, watched every video, memorized every specification. He knew the ground clearance, the turning radius, the exact dimensions of the cargo space. He could quote fuel efficiency figures for different driving conditions. His colleagues had started teasing him about it. "So when's the XUV arriving?" Ranjit would ask every time they spoke. "Still a few weeks," Vikram would reply, trying to sound casual. 3 weeks after booking, Ms. Reddy sent him a message with an update. The car had entered production. She attached a photo from the manufacturing facility, a silver XUV700 on the assembly line with his booking number visible on a sheet placed on the dashboard. Vikram stared at that photo for a full minute. That was his vehicle, being built right now somewhere in a factory. Workers were installing its engine, fitting its seats, connecting its systems. In a few weeks, that specific SUV would be parked in his driveway. He showed the photo to Mira that evening. She smiled at his excitement, the same way she'd smiled when he was nervous before their wedding or when Arav was born. She had this way of finding his enthusiasm endearing even when he was being ridiculous about it. "It's really happening," he said. "It really is," she agreed. The old SUV, meanwhile, had found a buyer. Vikram had listed it online, and after some negotiation, a young software engineer who was buying his first car had agreed to the price. The transaction would happen after the new car arrived. Looking at the old vehicle now, Vikram felt a strange mix of gratitude and readiness to move on. It had served them faithfully, but its time had passed. 5 weeks in, Ms. Reddy called with the news he'd been waiting for. The car had arrived at the dealership and was going through pre-delivery inspection. They could schedule the handover for the following week. Vikram barely slept that night. He lay in bed, mind racing with thoughts. Should he take the day off work for the delivery? What if there were issues with the vehicle? Should he inspect it thoroughly, or trust the dealership's preparation? What about the insurance? Was everything finalized? Stop thinking so loud, Mira mumbled beside him. I can hear your brain working from here. Sorry, I'm just excited. I know. But try to sleep. You'll need energy for your big day. They settled on Thursday for the delivery. Vikram did take half the day off, telling his manager it was for an important personal matter. The kids wanted to skip school to be there, but Vikram and Mira held firm. They'd see the car when they got home. Wednesday evening, Vikram gave the old SUV one last wash. He cleaned out all their belongings. The sunglasses in the glove box, the umbrella under the seat, the random collection of coins in the cup holder. He found Arav's old cricket ball, Dia's forgotten hair clip, receipts from restaurants they'd visited years ago. Each item was a small memory, a fragment of the life they'd lived in this vehicle. Thanks for everything, he whispered, feeling slightly foolish talking to a machine but not caring. Tomorrow was a new beginning. Thursday morning arrived with clear skies and perfect weather. Vikram wore his favorite shirt, the one Mira said made him look confident. They reached the dealership at 11 and Ms. Reddy was waiting with a smile that suggested she enjoyed this part of her job. Ready to meet your XUV700? She asked. More than ready, Vikram replied. She led them to the delivery bay, a separate section of the showroom where new vehicles were prepared. And there it stood, his dazzling silver XUV700 gleaming under the bay lights. It had a small garland of flowers on the grille, and a red ribbon tied across the front, the traditional way of welcoming an auspicious new purchase. A small table had been set up beside the vehicle, with prayer items, a coconut, some flowers, incense sticks, and a small plate for the ritual. The dealership had arranged for a brief puja ceremony, a blessing for the vehicle and its occupants. Vikram felt his throat tighten slightly. This was more than just buying a car. It was a milestone, a marker of how far they'd come. He thought of his father, who'd owned one modest scooter his entire life, who'd worked in a government office for 40 years, saving every rupee for his children's education. He thought of those early years in Bengaluru, when he and Mira had shared a one-room apartment and taken buses everywhere. The priest performed the small ceremony, chanting prayers and marking the vehicle with sacred ash. Vikram and Mira broke the coconut, the traditional gesture of removing obstacles. Ms. Reddy handed him a large key fob, sleek, modern, with the Mahindra logo embossed on it. Congratulations, she said warmly. It's all yours. The paperwork took another hour. Registration documents, insurance papers, owner's manual, warranty cards, service booklet. Ms. Reddy explained everything patiently. She showed them how to use the connected car app on their phones, demonstrated the key fob functions, and went through a final walk-around of the vehicle, pointing out every feature and control. The fuel tank is full. First service is due at 10,000 kilometers or 1 year. And if you have any questions or concerns, call me anytime, she said. Vikram did a detailed inspection, checking panel gaps, paint quality, tire pressure, fluid levels. Everything was perfect. The vehicle had only 32 kilometers on the odometer, just the delivery mileage. Finally, at 2 in the afternoon, they were ready to leave. Vikram settled into the driver's seat, Mira beside him. The cabin still had that new car smell, leather, plastic, and possibility. He pressed the brake, pushed the start button, and the engine came to life with a refined hum. Ms. Reddy and her team stood outside, waving as he slowly drove the XUV700 out of the dealership. His heart was pounding, his hands slightly sweaty on the steering wheel. This was his vehicle now, his flagship SUV, his reward for years of hard work and careful planning. How does it feel? Mira asked, watching his face. Vikram grinned, unable to contain it anymore. It feels amazing. They drove home slowly, both of them hyper-aware of every sound, every movement. When they pulled into their apartment complex, heads turned. Neighbors stopped to look. The security guard whistled appreciatively, and waiting at their parking spot were Arav and Dia, who'd somehow convinced their grandmother to bring them home early from school. Their faces lit up when they saw the silver SUV approaching. Vikram parked carefully, turned off the engine, and just sat there for a moment, absorbing the reality of it all. Well, Mira said softly, welcome to the family XUV700. Welcome indeed. The first week with the XUV700 was like a honeymoon period. Vikram found excuses to drive it everywhere. Need milk from the store 2 blocks away. He'd take the XUV, dropping the kids to school? Absolutely. Even when Mira suggested ordering groceries online, he'd volunteer to go pick them up instead. She'd roll her eyes affectionately, but she understood. He was in love with this machine. Every drive revealed something new. The way the automatic transmission anticipated his needs, shifting smoothly before he even realized he needed more power. The adaptive cruise control that made highway driving feel effortless. The surround view camera system that turned parallel parking from a stressful ordeal into a simple maneuver. Features he'd only read about were now part of his daily life. The kids had claimed ownership of the second row within days. Arav had his side, Dia had hers, and they'd arranged their water bottles, snacks, and entertainment devices like tiny homeowners setting up their first apartment. The panoramic sunroof was a constant source of joy for Dia, who'd spend entire drives gazing up at clouds and trees passing overhead. "It's like having a window to the sky," she'd declared on day 3, and Vikram had to admit the child was onto something poetic. Mira had been hesitant to drive it initially. She'd grown comfortable with the old SUV's dimensions, knew exactly where its edges were, understood its quirks. The XUV700 was bigger, newer, and expensive enough to make her nervous. What if I scratch it? She'd worried on the first Saturday after delivery. "Then we'll fix it," Vikram had said simply. "It's a car, not a museum piece. It's meant to be driven." He'd taken her to an empty parking lot that afternoon, let her get familiar with the size, practice using the 360-degree camera. Within an hour, her confidence had grown. The parking sensors beeped helpfully when she got close to obstacles. The cameras showed every angle, and the power steering made maneuvering easier than she'd expected. By the second week, she was taking it to the supermarket herself. By the third week, she'd driven it to her office, enjoying the comfortable commute and the envious glances from colleagues in the parking lot. The real test came when Vikram had to drive to Mysore for a client meeting. A 3-hour journey each way, something he'd done countless times in the old SUV but never looked forward to. This time felt different from the moment he started planning it. He left early on a Wednesday morning while Bengaluru was still waking up. The XUV700 cut through the thin traffic smoothly, the diesel engine pulling strongly whenever he needed to overtake slower vehicles. Once he hit the highway, he engaged the adaptive cruise control and settled in for the ride. The highway to Mysore had been recently upgraded, long stretches of smooth tarmac interrupted occasionally by construction zones. The XUV700 handled it all beautifully. The suspension soaked up the imperfections. The cabin remained quiet even at highway speeds, and the comfortable seats meant he arrived at his destination feeling fresh rather than exhausted. The meeting went well, better than expected actually. His client, a textile manufacturer who'd been difficult to please, noticed the XUV700 in the parking lot. "New vehicle?" he'd asked during a break in their discussion. "Just got it a few weeks ago," Vikram had replied. "Excellent choice. I've been reading about the 2025 model. Mahindra's really stepped up their game." They'd spent 10 minutes discussing cars, and somehow that casual conversation had broken the ice better than any formal presentation could have. On the drive back, Vikram experimented with the sound system, connecting his phone via Bluetooth and playing his favorite playlist. The audio quality was impressive, clear, balanced with enough bass to feel the music without it being overwhelming. He found himself actually enjoying the journey, something he hadn't expected from a work trip. He reached home by 7 that evening, and the first thing he did after greeting his family was tell them about the drive. "I wasn't tired at all," he said, genuinely surprised. "Usually after Mysore, I need an hour to recover. Today, I feel like I could drive another 100 kilometers. "That's the difference good engineering makes," Mira observed. "You're not fighting the vehicle anymore. It's working with you." The weekend brought another adventure. They'd been postponing a trip to their hometown in Punjab for months, always finding some excuse. With the new XUV700, suddenly a 1,500-kilometer journey didn't seem daunting. It seemed exciting. They planned to leave early Saturday morning and reach by evening. Breaking the journey with stops along the way, Vikram downloaded offline maps, charged everyone's devices, and packed the spacious boot with luggage, snacks, and emergency supplies. The cargo space was impressive, swallowing their suitcases, shopping bags, and even Arav's cricket kit with room to spare. The journey started beautifully. By 6 in the morning, they were on the highway, watching the sun rise over Karnataka's landscape. Dia fell asleep within an hour, the smooth ride and comfortable seats working like a lullaby. Arav had his headphones on, lost in his own world of music and games. Mira and Vikram talked, really talked, in a way they hadn't in months. Something about being on the road, just the two of them in the front with the kids occupied behind, brought back memories of their early married years when they'd take weekend trips just to escape the city. "Remember that old Tata Safari we rented for our Goa trip?" Mira said, laughing. "The one that broke down twice? How could I forget? We were so young and stupid thinking we could handle anything." "We did handle it," Vikram pointed out. "We made it back, didn't we? Barely, but look at us now. Our own SUV, so comfortable the kids are sleeping like babies. Features we didn't even know existed back then." Vikram glanced at her and smiled. "We've come a long way." They stopped for breakfast at a highway dhaba, the kind with excellent parathas and chai. While they ate, a couple at the next table asked about the XUV700 they'd seen in the parking lot. "How's the mileage?" the man asked. "We're considering one too." Vikram checked his trip computer. "I'm getting about 15 on this highway run, which is pretty good for a diesel this size. In the city, it's around 12 to 13. They ended up chatting for 20 minutes, Vikram surprising himself with how enthusiastically he answered their questions. A month ago, he'd been the one asking questions. Now he was the experienced owner sharing wisdom. Back on the road, they crossed into Rajasthan by afternoon. The landscape changed, more arid, flatter, with the occasional colorful truck providing visual interest. The temperature climbed, but the dual-zone climate control kept everyone comfortable. Around 4 in the afternoon, somewhere near Jaipur, traffic slowed to a crawl. An accident ahead had created a massive jam. This was exactly the kind of situation that used to frustrate Vikram endlessly. But this time he simply engaged the adaptive cruise control, let the vehicle handle the stop-and-go traffic, and focused on staying calm. The automatic transmission meant no constant clutch work, no leg fatigue. The start-stop function cut the engine during long waits, saving fuel. The entertainment system kept everyone occupied. What could have been a nightmare turned into just a mild inconvenience. They finally pulled up to his parents' house in Ludhiana at 8 in the evening. His mother came rushing out before they'd even parked properly, followed by his father moving at his more measured pace. After the hugs and greetings, his father walked around the XUV700 slowly, taking it in from every angle. He was a man of few words, someone who believed in actions over expressions. He ran his hand along the body, checked the tires, peered through the windows at the interior. "Good choice," he finally said, and those 2 words from his father meant more than 100 compliments from anyone else. His mother wanted a ride immediately. They drove around the neighborhood and she kept exclaiming over every feature: the sunroof, the smooth ride, the space, the screens. She called Mira's parents on video call to show off the car, her pride evident even through her attempts at modesty. That night, as Vikram lay in his childhood bedroom with Mira beside him and the kids sleeping in the next room, he felt a deep sense of contentment. The XUV700 had proven itself on this first major journey. No issues, no problems, just solid, dependable performance that made a long trip feel manageable. "You made the right choice," Mira whispered in the dark. "We made the right choice," he corrected. Over the next few weeks, the XUV700 became more than just transportation. It became an enabler of experiences. Weekend trips to nearby cities that they'd always postponed suddenly became doable. A surprise visit to Mira's parents 3 hours away wasn't a big production anymore. Taking his elderly neighbor to the hospital for a checkup was easier, because the vehicle was comfortable and accessible. Vikram noticed he was driving more carefully now, more mindfully. The blind spot warning had saved him twice from changing lanes into hidden vehicles. The forward collision warning had alerted him to sudden braking ahead before he'd even noticed. The safety features weren't just impressive specifications, they were actively keeping his family safer. The connected car features surprised him with their usefulness. He could remotely check if he'd locked the doors, start the air conditioning a few minutes before getting in on hot days, and even track the vehicle's location if needed. The over-the-air updates meant the software improved periodically without him having to visit the service center. One evening, about 6 weeks after taking delivery, Vikram found himself washing the XUV700 in their apartment's parking area.